Why the fishing pole and the cool Father's Day shirt with the cars and the beach scenery? Well, when it comes to fishing, you may have to tow a boat. And when you're towing a boat, it puts a lot of undue stress on your vehicle, especially if you're dealing in salt water. Well, you don't want to miss Tech Garage today because we have a special guest, and that special guest is an expert when it comes to fishing, and we may even get him, to turn some wrenches. Today on Tech Garage, it's all about that severe duty service. Welcome to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, we got the 2015 Yukon up on the lift, and this is actually a tow vehicle, so it's going to need some severe duty service. I'm talking a lot of service, but before we get started, we don't even know what severe duty service is, Dave, so can you help us out?
Yeah, this is how the AAA defines it. Anyone who drives their vehicle on a trip fewer than 5 miles when there's mild weather, or fewer than 10 miles in freezing conditions, that can be really brutal.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's because of it's really not getting that oil hot and up to temperature, and you get a lot of moisture in the engine. Moisture is corrosive, not a good thing.
If you drive bumper to bumper in hot weather, that is a bad deal.
That's pretty obvious, yeah. Super hot, fans running, engines getting hot, definitely killing the additives in the oil and all the fluids.
For those of you who live in big cities, you see a theme here. If you consistently drive at speeds below 50 miles an hour for a long stretch.
Yeah, the car never really gets out there. It's a term called open and closed loop. Once that car never gets in the closed loop, that catalytic converter is really not getting hot, and that's when they function the best, so that's a problem as well.
If you're driving on roads that are salty, muddy, dusty, or roads with sand or gravel on them, that is considered severe duty as well.
Yeah, hello. Here's our tow vehicle.
It's a poster child for that,
exactly,
isn't it?
Yeah, here's a poster child. We're going in salt water, dropping boats, and that brings us to our last point.
Also the poster child for this one. If you regularly tow a trailer, or if you have a camper or even a rooftop carrier, that can kind of bog down the vehicle.
Yeah, extra weight, extra wind dynamics, but more or less towing, that's putting a massive amount in. You can look at the chart right here. This is pretty cool. The top one's regular service, the bottom one's severe duty service. Big difference between them, Dave.
Yeah, if you're driving under regular conditions, of course there's a lot of routine maintenance you got to do, but there's a whole lot extra you have to do if you're talking severe duty, and that's what this second chart is all about. So you really got to keep after it to keep that vehicle running well.
Absolutely, and Dave, that one's got a lot of check marks and several of them in the transmission and differential service, so we need to get started.
Yeah, it looks like you have your work cut out for you, sir.
Why me? You're coming with me.
No, because you went fishing, so now you have to pay for that trip by doing maintenance on the vehicle.
Man, that was fun. I need a fishing show. That's what I need. What about Josh?
Josh is working on a demo, so you're on your own.
Oh, I got just the guy. I don't need you, Dave, today.
All righty.
Why don't we need Dave? Well, we are upgrading, folks. We got Justin Leake from Chasing the Sun. Now, Justin, you are an expert fisherman, my man. You got an incredible hit television show, but you also turn some wrenches.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, I use tow vehicles and boats on a regular basis, so I mean, learning from a pro how to maintain them, hey, this is a good lesson that I need.
Yeah, it's a win-win, right? I go fishing with you, you turn some wrenches, here we go, man. So what we'll do is we'll kind of just get these transmission bolts out. We'll start on this side and work our way. Let's leave two on the back, and let's see how you work with that wrench. Justin, tell me a little bit about fishing down in Panama City, man. I know it's beautiful. We got a condo down there. It's incredible.
We do. You know, I always say it's one of the more versatile fisheries. If people watch Chasing the Sun, they know. We have a little bit of everything. So it just depends on what the weather's doing.
Man, I used to fish back in the day. I would fish down in Flamingo, down in South Florida, man. We could catch snook, we could catch redfish. Yep, tarpon, there we go, taking a bath, I told you. All right, this is perfect, so I hope you're ready to get a little bit of a bath. It starts dumping, that's great. Keep those last two in, and it's a pretty good trick when you do this. You kind of keep the last two in and tip it to the front. I told you we're gonna get a bath, so go ahead and see if you can get a couple more out on your side.
All right.
Leave that last one in though. We don't wanna take too much of a bath. But here we go.
I'll tell you what, having a pan this size makes this a lot easier.
Yeah, that's our buddies at RockAuto.com hooked us up with the whole drain pan and everything, so we're in good shape here. This vehicle, you know, it's been in salt water. You can actually see it. Tows your boat, puts it in the water. You guys sometimes submerge it, so this is a good idea. So, Justin, if you would just kind of hit those bolts over there little by little, I'm hoping that front will, I'm hoping, and I say hoping, yeah. I'm hoping that front will dump down. There it goes. Look at that. You ready?
Yep.
A little more.
Come all the way out with it?
Not yet. Let's go a little slower, and then, all right, now I'm going to sandwich the pan. There you go. Look at that. Oh, beautiful. There we go. I told you were going to get a bath. How nice is that? So, you know, used to getting greasy, not like this, right?
So is this is the way you do it? You
Man,
just got to tilt it forward and drain it on out.
I'll tell you what, they don't give us a
right.
drain plug anymore. That would be nice because we'd be able to drain it. But no, this is basically it. Now what we'll do is we'll take this bolt out right here. Then we'll manipulate the pan and get it on out of here. We'll change the filter and make sure we get the transmission in good shape. But you know, Justin, inside a transmission, man, that's a mystery machine as it is.
Oh my goodness.
So we're gonna actually turn to Josh and Dave. They're actually got one apart over there. So we'll be back with more Tech Garage right after this break.
Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is brought to you by BrothersTrucks.com, your #1 source for 1947 to 87 Chevy and GMC truck restoration. NH Oil Undercoating, the official oil-based rust prevention system. And by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need. We are rocking and rolling here at Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. While John's cleaning up transmission fluid over there, we've got an automatic transmission splayed out here on the table. Tell me what I'm looking at here, Josh.
Yeah, the transmission can be pretty complicated, but I want to try to simplify it for you. What we do is we start off with a torque converter, and its purpose is to multiply torque, but also to drive the oil pump on the transmission.
All right, well, show me how that multiplies torque.
Well, right inside here we have a stator. What the stator does, it just redirects fluid to make it easier for the torque converter to spin and just multiplies torque.
And this is the stator right there?
Right, this is a stator.
Okay, very cool. And then onto this pump, which looks pretty complicated.
Right, so the torque converter actually drives the pump. If you look inside here, there's a couple of tangs. And when the torque converter spins, the tangs on the torque converter actually spin the pump. And it makes these vanes move. And it pulls in from one side, and it compresses it, it builds pressure, and pushes it out the other side.
All right, and these are the tangs here. They mate with that. And these vanes, as the centrifugal force pulls them out, it moves the fluid more and more as it goes back. Got it. Now, I see you brought your ant farm with you here.
Yeah,
I can't even make sense of this. Tell me what
it looks like it. Well, you say ant farm, I say valve body.
Okay.
The pump then pumps the fluid to the valve body, and on the other side, you look, these are actually valve runs. Inside here are spool valves, and all they do is they just direct fluid to the clutches.
All right, I understand this part a little bit more. This is the planetary gear set. This really drives the whole thing, so to speak. There are a couple of these usually in an automatic transmission, and why is it called a planetary gear set? Let me show you here. This is the ring gear, but inside that, these are the planetary gears. So you see them, and they orbit or rotate around the sun gear right there. So as that turns, these turn in the opposite direction as the sun gear. And then we move on to the clutches, which are around the outside of the planetary gear set. And these clutches either hold or drive one of the planetary gear sets, and there are also bands around the outside, and they hold the planetary gear set depending on which gear you're going to go to. And that's all stacked. All of those elements are stacked right here. So you have a clutch pack here and a clutch pack here, both on top of planetary gear sets. There are several bands throughout the automatic transmission, and between the gear set and the bands, they either hold or drive different elements. That gives you the gear you're looking for, whether it's a forward gear, reverse, or neutral. Well, it looks like John and Justin are in overdrive over there, getting things put together underneath the Yukon.
Wow, that's a good look at the inside of the transmission. Justin, I think I'm more confused or intimidated than I was before.
I'll tell you what, that's a lot of gears and moving parts, and I'm glad there's professionals like y'all that understand that, because that's a little over my head.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, bring you up to speed. We actually dropped the pan down, and when we dropped the pan down, man, you can see all the goop inside of it. We kind of had some of the clutch material. Totally normal. Don't get upset. Your clutches are going to wear after time. You're going to get that in there. Justin, I watch you fish. I watch you fly fish. I know you got some touch with that rod, man. How are you with a gun?
I got a few hours on them.
There you go. You think you can run it up, but not over torque it now. It's only 80 inch-pounds. That's about 6 foot-pounds, a little bit over. That's not a lot. So let's just kind of bump it up, and then we'll go back and retorque it.
All right. So any particular order? Start at the front, back?
Now, we'll go back and torque it in order, but if we just kind of bump them up and gingerly, there you go. That's good. Just a little bump on them. Justin, it's fun fishing out there, but hey, do you got any questions for Automotive Guy?
I'll tell you something that I've often thought about, but I've never heard a good answer to, and I bet you may have one, is when I'm towing my boats. I have two boats that I use. One is a really lightweight skiff, so I normally just tow it in drive just as you would normally. Right. But I have a big heavy center console, and when I tow it, should I use the tow haul mode? And if I should, I do use the tow haul mode, but what does it actually do?
That's a great question. A tow haul mode basically increase line pressure. Now, what line pressure is in a transmission? Just think about, they showed you earlier all those clutches, and it has to squeeze those clutches. So what happens is it squeezes the clutches and it makes them nice and tight so they don't slip.
Okay.
Now when you're towing, especially with your heavy boat, it kind of increases that line pressure. Computers are pretty smart now, and it squeezes it. Well, that brings us to another point too. Some old transmissions, you used to feel it slipping and slipping. Well, that's not the case today. So a transmission today, it may squeeze it real tight and wear the clutches out, squeeze it even tighter, wear them out more, and then eventually just go, boom, I'm not running anymore, that's it, and you're sitting there stranded. So it gets pretty rough.
Oh, there you go.
But what do you service? Let's talk about your boat a little bit. How about some boat service? You do that as well?
Oh, it's the same exact thing. I mean, instead of a transmission, we have, you know, lower units, and that's what puts your power to the water. So that gear oil, I end up changing mine about 4 times a year because I got a lot of hours on the water every year. I have to make sure that I have a reliable engine and I maintain it regularly, and then that way I can trust that engine to get me back safely.
Absolutely. Well, we'll get this thing torqued to specifications. We'll get it with the right pattern. We'll make sure it's good. Justin, it's been great having you. Stick around. We're going to have to fill this thing up with fluid, and we'll have a little bit more, but let's get this done. Meanwhile, you guys take a break. There's some Garage Ed, and it's all about suspension. You don't want to miss that. We'll be back in about 2 minutes. Stick around for more Tech Garage presented by rockauto.com. Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by rockauto.com. Well, it's Garage Ed time, and it's time to turn our attention to the rear suspension. Let's look at all the different types of rear suspensions. Let's start up here with the actual Torsion Bar Suspension system. This is employed on a lot of four-wheel drive vehicles. You can see their control arm right there, and then the torsion bar goes all the way back, and it's usually attached to some frame at some point. Now, I want you to be careful with a torsion bar suspension. Although it doesn't look like it's under tension, it is. That's a spring under immense amount of tension. So if you're loosening any of those components, make sure you release the tension off the torsion bar first. Going down to our actual leaf spring suspension system down there. It's usually a non-independent suspension on a lot of older vehicles. You see with the big differential going across. You got your leaf springs on the bottom. You want to check your shackles on the front, on the back. You want to make sure there's no looseness, and make sure all your couplings on your springs tight and secure so your suspension will actually work well. Then over there you got your air shock. Now your air shock or air spring is controlled by air. Now that's pretty cool because it is a spring and it controls ride height. It's just done with air. It's located usually where a coil spring would go, and then it actually supports the vehicle with the air spring itself through a solenoid and an air motor and a couple of channels of air supply. We can get that ride height correct. Now here's another one. This is a coil spring suspension I have right here. You can see the coil, the red portion right here, located right here, and then you have the control arm right here, and then the upper one right here, connected to our actual dead axle back here. This is a front wheel drive vehicle, so it's a coil spring suspension system, but it works really, really well. Now, when we talk about suspensions and springs, we have to talk a lot about shock absorbers. And when we're talking about shock absorbers, there's a couple different types as well. Now, you had your air spring right here, but you could have an air shock. How do I know it's an air shock? Well, you have an air fitting right here. You inject air into it, and bam, it's going to open up. Now, our shock absorbers. Our shock absorbers actually control spring oscillations. Our spring control ride height. And you can see one right here, cutaway. It's all about the valving inside the shock absorber, my friends. What happens here is the fluid either passes through real fast and you get that bouncy ride, or it's restricted and you get a little stiffer ride. But inside of here, you could have a monotube, or you can have an actual nitrogen charged or a gas charged shock. Just think about dividing this over here, and then I would have gas on one side and actual liquid on the other side. Kind of pressurizes a little bit, stops the aeration, gives you a good ride. Now, to check the rear suspension system, man, there's all kinds of checks you want to make it. A visual inspection is key. Dave's got it underway.
John, we always tell everybody, with everything we do under the car, it starts with a visual inspection, and that's what we're doing here. First thing we want to look at on the rear suspension is the coil spring. Looking for any degradation there, especially if you live in the Northeast, you're going to have all kinds of rust potentially on that, and rocks and things can jump up and chip the spring there. So if you have any issues with the spring, you're going to want to replace that, because that's a pretty important part of the suspension here. Next, we're going to take a pry bar, and we're going to look at the control arms here, maybe check where the bushings are, see if there's any wiggle there, and if there is, you've got bad bushings, they'll need to be replaced. And also here with the other control arms, we're doing the same thing. Everything here looks really sound. And then we're going to go up to the shock and take a look at it first to see if it's leaking any fluid from the top and bottom. Anywhere on the shock, that's going to be an issue, and we'll give it a big tug. If it moves around, again, bushing issues, or just a bolt at the top or the bottom, you might need to replace your shocks if that is loose. Before we got the car up in the air, we did a jounce or a bounce test. And what you want to do is you push down on the car. It should bounce up and down about 1 or 1.5 times. If it bounces like a baby buggy, that's when you know you've got a real problem, and you'll know it if you have it. And that is about all there is to checking your rear suspension. If you've got something you want us to check out on our Garage Ed segment, hit us up on social media and let us know what your question is. We'll be right back with the Master Tech Tech Tip, the MTTT. It's all about electrical components when we return to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is brought to you by Custom Auto Sound, the originator of classic car OEM fit radios since 1977. Magic Creeper, the most versatile creeper ever. And by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
Well, we have a mess here. What's going on? Well, we're actually simulating the back of Dave's van. He has little kids, as I'm sure you do, and it looks just like this, and there's a reason for that. Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, it's time for the Master Technician's Tech Tip. And what's it all about? Well, we're talking about amp draws and the effect that it has on motors. It's not a good thing. We're talking about mechanical resistance. First of all, let's understand a little bit about amps. So if you look at the meter there, I can show you how you're going to measure amps with a DVOM, a digital volt ohm meter. Just simply break the circuit open, and the meter has to become part of the circuit. So you can see it going up. The amps are running through the meter, and it continues on, so the component will work or the light bulb will light, and you can measure the amps going to the component. Now I have it set up right here on our console lab board. You can actually see it right here. So what I do, I have the meter here, my power supply is coming in, it's going through this motor right here, and then I'm completing the side over here to ground with the meter. So the amps have to run through the meter, he's gonna count them, and then we're gonna understand what's going on. So I'm gonna fire up that motor. You can see it spinning, that's wonderful, 4 amps, 4.5 amps, whatever it may be. That's actually milliamps, so 43 milliamps. Now, when I grab that motor, I'm gonna put mechanical resistance on it. Think about your fuel pump starting to wear out, mechanical resistance. Think about your window track starting to bind, mechanical resistance. It's putting a lot of strain on that motor. Watch this. There it goes. 40, 50, 60 till I blow a fuse. So what's happening? Mechanical resistance is causing amps to go up. When amps go up, that creates heat and premature component failure. Not a good thing. Well, back to our mess over here. You can see what's going on. It's for a reason, because this is what seat tracks look like. So if you have a seat track that looks like this, I'm gonna run it back and forth. Everything seems to be pretty fine. Oh my Lord, he's got beef jerky here and everything. Wow, that definitely portrays his children in the back of the van. Mine are a little older, so we're all right. So here's the deal. Back and forth, 3, maybe 4 amps. Now what I did is I stole his brush out of Dave's dressing room here. I'm just gonna wedge it in this track just like it would fall in, and when I go forward, watch the meter. Ooh, 5, it's going up, I can't even stop it, but there it goes, 8. Oh man, we're gonna fry something. So eventually it got hung up in the track. You're gonna end up blowing a fuse or burn a circuit. Not a good thing. So make sure all your motors are in good shape, your tracks are clean, your windows are, go up and down easily, your fuel filter's not clogged. That all causes premature component failure. Well, when you're repairing a vehicle, time is money. Dave and Tom have a real time saver at RockAuto.com.
Well, that's right, John. At RockAuto.com, you can save some cash, and you can also save a lot of time. How so, Tom?
We put some parts together into kits, so you don't have to guess, oh, okay, is this part worn out, or is this part worn out? It's like if one part's worn out or damaged, the other parts surrounding it are likely damaged.
And you're not going to have any surprises. You go to replace one part, and you find that 3 others are messed up, and now you've got to go get the parts for that.
Right, or you've, 6 months from now, hey, I should have replaced that part too. So we have like tune-up kits for old cars, distributor caps, and spark plug wires. We have front-end kits, so if, let's say you've hit a curb and you're trying to figure out which control arm is damaged, or you have rust damage, you don't have to figure out which control arm or which sway bar, which link do I need. It's all conveniently put in one part number. The story that cars are getting harder to work on, too high tech, for all parts it's not true. Some things are easier than they were on older vehicles.
It makes it a whole lot easier. It prevents a lot of surprises, and in some cases you won't need to buy any special tools if you buy the entire assembly from RockAuto.com.
Well, that's the last quart in there. We should be good to go. we use the right fluid. Make sure you do. Check your manufacturer service manual and use the right fluid and the right quantities when you go. Now, Justin, we're not going to take this thing out and go do donuts, man. We're going to actually run it up to operating temperature, recheck the fluid, pick it up, recheck for leaks. We don't let anything go out of Tech Garage that's not in tip-top shape. But I got a question for you, man. What's the deal? How did you keep your shirt so clean? It's a transmission service. You're supposed to take in a bath.
Well, that's one of the special skills that I have. I don't know if you've seen my boat, but I like to keep my boat clean. I keep myself clean, and somehow I'm just, I stay away from the mess. If a fish comes in the boat, I always take a step back, let somebody else get dirty.
There you go. Well, speaking of taking a step back, here's my man Dave. Dave, we got it filled up and topped off, but I think Justin's got a gift for you, man, and this is pretty cool. So,
well,
Justin, what you got?
We're big fans of fishing, but we're even bigger fans of taking kids fishing. I heard you have a couple kids.
Yes.
So I want you to give this to your kids, and then the next time you come to visit us, bring the kids with you, and that way we can take them fishing.
That is cool. Lincoln and Eleanor, we're going to go fishing in the pond. This will be so cool.
What you know about that? I got nothing. What do I get? I get 30 transmission fluid.
Well, we can go fishing again.
Hey, I
How
live
about
here.
that?
That's right. I live here. We're
You can
going
go
fishing.
anytime.
Yeah. Well, it's been an awesome show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Justin Leake from Chasing the Sun. Check him out on Discovery. We'll see you till next week from Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com.
Production assistance for Tech Garage is provided by Chipola College, located in Marianna, Florida. Founded in 1947, Chipola was ranked recently as one of the top 3 community colleges in the United States.